Chapter 8. Earth's Dilemma. On Earth, the recent surge in Nexuser's demands for more fighters to be supplied to the Drixarians had set off a chain of alarm and consternation within the corridors of power. Governments around the world were grappling with the stark reality of an unseen yet pervasive alien influence that had been manipulating human affairs for centuries. In a secure conference room, leaders of various nations sat in an emergency summit filled with urgency and apprehension. The latest demands from the Nexusar, communicated through clandestine channels, were laid out on the table, a chilling request for thousands more humans to be delivered for the Drixarian war effort atop the little more than 10,000 they recently taken. "We can't keep up with these demands without raising public suspicion," voiced the U.S. President Elizabeth H. Graham, her expression grave. "People are starting to ask questions. Disappearances are becoming too frequent to cover up." The British Prime Minister Aaron Jones, a man with a stern demeanor, leaned forward. "Not to mention the ethical implications. We are essentially handing our people over to an unknown fate. This is against everything we stand for." A murmur of agreement went around the table. The moral quandary of their situation was not lost on any of them. The Nexusar, a shadowy alien race that had long held sway over human affairs from their base on the moon, had become increasingly demanding, and their ability to manipulate global events was a source of growing concern. Russian President Mikhail Petrov, a seasoned politician with a pragmatic streak, spoke up. "We need a united front. Perhaps it's time to consider disclosing the existence of the Nexusar to the public. The secrecy is becoming unsustainable." The suggestion sparked a heated debate. The implications of such a revelation were far-reaching and potentially destabilizing. Yet, the current path of covert compliance with the Nexusar's demands was proving to be equally untenable. As the discussions continued, a sense of helplessness pervaded the room. Each leader was acutely aware of the delicate balance they were trying to maintain, protecting their citizens from the terrifying truth of extraterrestrial manipulation, while trying to navigate the increasingly impossible demands of their hidden overlords. Meanwhile, outside the confines of the meeting room, the world carried on, oblivious to the cosmic chess game in which they were unwitting pawns. Disappearances, attributed to mundane causes, continued to occur, fueling the Drixarian war machine in a conflict far beyond Earth's skies. In a clandestine meeting room, world leaders gathered to discuss the latest, most alarming strategy proposed by the Nexusar: to instigate a large-scale global conflict, a World War III, to mask the escalating disappearances of people for the Drixarian war effort. The air was tense, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on each leader. President Graham, a woman known for her resilience, spoke first. "We cannot let this happen. A global war? The cost would be unimaginable." Chinese President Liang Wei, a seasoned politician with a deep sense of his nation's history, agreed. "It's unthinkable. The loss of life, the destruction. We must find another way." President Mikhail Petrov, known for his steadfastness, added firmly, "We cannot play into their hands. This is exactly what the Nexusar want: chaos, destruction, diversion." As they deliberated, the room's atmosphere shifted abruptly with the unexpected arrival of Zalarian, a representative of the Nexusar. His entrance was as silent as it was imposing. "You will do as instructed," Zalarian's voice resonated, cold and commanding. "You are in your positions of power because we placed you there. We have been manipulating tensions, using your media and social networks to create the perfect pretext for conflict. It is time for you to fulfill your purpose." President Graham, her face etched with conflict, finally conceded. "If it's the only way to keep our people safe from a direct Drixarian assault." Wei, though visibly distressed, nodded in reluctant agreement. "Our priority must be to protect our citizens from a greater threat." Petrov, however, remained defiant. "And what of our people's lives lost in a manufactured war? How do we justify that?" Zalarian's response was chilling. "If the Drixarians do not receive what they want, they will come. And when they come, they will take what they need, destroying the delicate balance of your world society. The choice is yours, but the consequences of defiance are far more severe. The room fell silent, the leaders grappling with the impossible choice before them. To instigate a global war was unthinkable, yet the threat of a Draxarian intervention was even more catastrophic. Each leader was trapped in a dilemma with no right answer, their positions of power reduced to mere pawns in the grand scheme of the Nexusar and Draxarians. In the secure conference room, the discussion grew tense as they tried to devise a strategy to meet the Nexusar's demand for 1 million new conscripts without triggering World War III. U.S. President Graham broke the silence. There has to be a way to achieve this without a global war. We can't be responsible for such a catastrophe. Chinese President Liang Wei once again nodded in agreement. We need a covert approach. Perhaps we can find individuals less likely to be missed by society. Mikhail Petrov, the Russian president, leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. It's a dangerous path. We're talking about taking people from their lives, their families. British Prime Minister Aaron Jones interjected. We need to think outside the box. There must be other options. It was the Canadian representative, Prime Minister Julia Desjardins, who then suggested a controversial approach. What if we create a facade of a rise in voluntary departures? An increase in assisted suicides, for instance. Present it as a humane option for those suffering. The room fell silent as they considered the implications of such a plan. Elizabeth H. Graham finally spoke. It's manipulative and morally questionable, but it could be a way to meet the demand without widespread destruction. Liang Wei added, It's a temporary solution, but it might buy us time to find a better way. Mikhail Petrov, though visibly uncomfortable, conceded, It's a lesser evil compared to a world war, but we must be cautious. Aaron Jones nodded. We'll need to coordinate carefully. Missteps could lead to unintended consequences. As they discussed the logistics of this plan, Zalarion, who had been observing the conversation, finally spoke. You propose to deceive your people to spare them from a larger conflict. Is this feasible? Elizabeth H. Graham addressed him directly. A global war would result in the loss of hundreds of millions of lives. That's counterproductive for everyone. Our approach, while ethically challenging, ensures a more controlled and sustainable solution for your demands. Solarian considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. Proceed with your plan, but the quota must be met. Fail, and the Draxarians will intervene directly. As the meeting concluded, each leader left with a heavy heart, aware of the dark path they were embarking upon. The plan, while sparing the world from the horrors of a global conflict, opened another Pandora's box, one filled with ethical dilemmas and the haunting reality of their complicity in a scheme that would change countless lives forever. In the weeks following the clandestine summit, a covert operation codenamed the Blue Light Initiative was put into motion by the world leaders. The plan, designed to meet the Nexuser's demands without plunging the world into chaos, was unprecedented in its scope and audacity. Under the guise of an international health program promoting dignified departures, governments across the globe began a discreet campaign of identifying individuals who fit the criteria set by the Nexuser, those whose absence would likely go unnoticed. This program was marketed as a compassionate solution for those seeking an end to their suffering, a narrative crafted to veil its true purpose. In reality, the individuals who opted for this program were not assisted in ending their lives, but were instead transported to secret holding facilities. There, they were placed into advanced containment units, referred to as stasis pods, which enveloped them in a blue light. These pods, using a technology provided covertly by the Nexusar, kept the occupants in a state of suspended animation, alive but in a deep, unaging slumber. The stasis pods were designed for efficient storage and easy transport. Lined in rows within the hidden facilities, they gave off a soft, pulsating glow, creating a surreal landscape of light and shadow. The sight was both haunting and mesmerizing. Hundreds of lives, paused in time, awaiting their unknown fate. As the initiative progressed, the targeted number of 1 million individuals slowly accumulated. Specialized teams, working under the highest level of secrecy, managed the logistics of the operation. The process was efficient, discreet, and disturbingly impersonal. U.S. President Elizabeth H. Graham, Chinese President Liang Wei, Russian President Mikhail Petrov, and British Prime Minister Aaron Jones monitored the progress with a mix of relief and unease. Each leader struggled with the moral implications of their actions, aware that they were trading one form of violence for another, more silent type. Once the quota was near completion, arrangements were made for the Drexarians to retrieve the stasis pods. Transport ships disguised as commercial vessels were scheduled to dock at the facilities, load the pods, and deliver them to a predetermined location in space where the Drexarians would take custody. As the first transport ship was loaded with its cargo of human lives suspended in blue light, the gravity of what had been done weighed heavily on those overseeing the operation. They had averted a global war, but at the cost of 1 million souls who had unknowingly become part of an interstellar transaction.